Hello and thanks for stopping by. This is Into the Dead 2 for the Nintendo Switch, published by Pickpock in 2019. The first Into the Dead game was released on various phone platforms way back in 2012, and I believe this was one of those free-to-play models where you could play the game for free, or at least a portion of the game, and then you spent money for upgrades. I think that was how it went. In any case, it apparently was downloaded millions upon millions of times, so it was popular. Now, I never played that first game, but I have to say this one feels like a game that was originally made for mobile phones. This happened to be a sale game around Christmas, and that's why I scooped it up a few years back. It was one of the first Switch sales that I actually saw for new games. I think it was $15 or $20 at the time, maybe it was around Christmas. Is it worth that asking price? Honestly, I guess I'm on the fence. Nowadays, I think you might be able to get better used games for the same price, but this one's okay. You play a father racing to get back to his family in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. The story advances when you get to the end of each level. You pull out a transmitter and you talk to your daughter or your sister-in-law. This basically unravels their story, and you make your way through the apocalypse towards them. As you would imagine, the story that's being described is one of hardship. You're on a track running, but basically you're just running forward. You don't have to do anything with the controller, you just run forward. You can drift to the left and the right, but basically you're always moving forward and just drifting. When you run into something, you naturally will slide off to the left or the right and keep on moving forward. You have two guns you carry along the way, and you can of course shoot zombies in front of you. But I'm going to summarize the whole core of this game. This game is a game about leaning. It is not about shooting. It's about leaning to the left, leaning to the right, and learning when to do both. That's all you're doing in this game, although you're always running at the same time. Just get comfortable with leaning. I imagine for phones, this was probably a motion thing, and here it's using the directional stick. We have 60 levels that are spread across a total of 7 chapters for the main game. By the time that I got to Chapter 4, I started to wonder if this game wasn't actually long enough. But I did keep playing, so I guess that's something. Overall, with this one, I kind of found that I initially didn't like it very much, but after playing it for a while, it does get a little better. Mainly when you start getting better weapons. I did one of the arcade modes, and I ended up with a new shotgun. And once I got that shotgun, it really helped things along. The zombie models in this one, they're relatively plain, they're not very gory. They're these tall, dark figures with these glowing eyes, and they're always in shadow for the most part, and occasionally they try to run and grab you. They do change over time. There are some different models in this game, but they're all pretty much just darkened in shadow. Overall, it does work. Each stage has a list of things to do, and it's usually different. Of course, everyone is survive to the end, that's one. But there's also other ones where it's like, get a specific number of kills, get a specific number of kills with a specific weapon, or maybe grenade kills. It's different for each level, and you usually can't do all of these items in any level with one go. Sometimes you just can't get anywhere until you upgrade a weapon and come back later for the same level. Early on I ran into some level that was asking for kills from a specific weapon. I think it was a bow and arrow. I'm nowhere near unlocking a bow and arrow at that stage, so clearly they expect you to unlock weapons and come back to finish the same level over and over again. So you get stars in this game. And you get stars by making these level targets, and when you get enough of these stars, naturally things become unlocked. You can now buy new weapons, you can buy upgrades, or you can use certain arcade levels. I guess the question becomes whether or not you find this gameplay compelling enough to want to continue to replay the levels over and over again just to get enough stars to get to some other place in the game. You can hold 2 weapons in this one, and you also have a pet with you usually. You can unlock different weapons for each of your weapon slots, or you can unlock a different pet. You earn experience for the weapons as you kill zombies with them, and you get to keep the experience if you die in the middle of a level, but of course you don't get the end of level loot. You have very little ammunition in this game. It is not about running and gunning as much as you'd like it to be. Some of the footage here where I'm shooting, honestly, this was nothing like it was in the early levels, not even the slightest. This is me after beating 60 levels and unlocking things purposefully. You start each level with very little ammunition. Not unusual to have 4 shots for my primary and maybe 2 for my secondary. You have to do your best to not waste ammunition here. You do pick up ammunition as you run, They're these little rising smoke trails you can see in the distance, and when you get close, they're these glowing ammunition crates, and then you just run over them. In these crates, you're going to get some bullets, but the problem is you're not going to get a ton of bullets. It's kind of frustrating when you look at an entire pile of ammunition, and you only get 5 to 10 bullets out of it. Not something I was expecting here. This game is definitely not about you shooting and killing zombies, at least not early on. It's just you looking ahead as far as you can and trying to figure out how to angle yourself between zombies and use whatever little bullets you have to survive that one moment you can't outrun a zombie's grasp because you miscalculated. You can get grabbed by a zombie usually once. If you do, you'll be prompted to press the A button, and if you can press it, you'll probably pull out a knife and stab a zombie in the head. Then you'll start running again. If you get caught a second time, you're going to lose the level. If you play this game at any length, you're going to learn about getting grabbed, and you're going to understand it, and it's going to become frustrating. You're naturally going to get grabbed because sometimes the clusters of zombies are just too deep. When you make it to the end of a level, and the end of the level, you can figure where that is by looking at the top left. There's a number, and that's the amount of feet you have to run before you get to the end. When you get to the end, you're going to get a loot sack, and then you can choose a reward. You can choose usually gold, or there are also 2 upgrades. It can be an upgrade for a gun, and by an upgrade, it's a temporary upgrade, not a permanent. But it's useful. Gold is great because when you start unlocking the ability to upgrade your weapons, when the experience gets high enough, you use the gold to level up your weapons. That's useful. I have to say the gameplay is relatively quick here. You never stop moving, so you kind of have to think about things quickly. As things are appearing in front of you, you have to really be able to figure out how to get around things, and in those rare times, how to kill multiple enemies with very few shots. Sometimes the zombies cluster together, and you can get a couple with the shotgun at once, or maybe you can shoot a barrel that explodes. You're going to have to figure out how to perform multiple kills if you want to make all the level targets, because sometimes that's part of the mission. Overall, I guess the level design is fun enough. I mean, we have different fields, we have forests, we have different parts of towns or junkyards. There are going to be some farms, military bases, mixes of all of these, really. You do run through all these areas pretty fast, though, so you don't get to wander around and really appreciate what you're looking at, but they're nice enough. Some levels are going to have special items that you can pick up and interact with along the way. Usually it's like a machine gun. You jump on the back of a turret and start shooting. Or maybe there's a chainsaw. These are just temporary weapons that you use for a few seconds to help you achieve, usually, certain goals in the game. They're certainly nice when you get them, but you really can't count on them. And you're always running, so I feel like you really have to luck into them if you actually can get one on a level. Now it seems to me for this game, the best thing to focus on overall is just dodging. Just make it to the end of the level once. You get there first, you get the loot bag, and then you repeat it again later to try to accomplish the other goals after you've upgraded to a certain capacity. The game has a definite arcade feel to it. I know there's also an actual arcade mode, but honestly the whole game feels like arcade play to me. It's a fundamentally basic game, it's got some simple mechanics. The game looks fine, but you're always going to be running, aiming, and leaning. It's something that you're going to actually like, or you're not going to like. There are also side story rewards that you unlock when you start beating enough levels. Basically, this is the same game, but with slightly different stories, and basically a different skin. The first game is called Divided, and it's a military setting, where you play a soldier just after parachuting out of a plane. It's you basically gathering up your squad and racing to get to a military destination. You'll see the other soldiers running alongside you, and occasionally they help jump in and get you out of jams. The second side mission is called Frostbitten, and as you would imagine, it's a winter setting. You get a communication on your walkie-talkie, and it's this guy that says he's got security in a helicopter in a mountain base. This is you racing through the different terrain to get up the mountain to meet this guy. The next one is called Untamed, and basically you find an abandoned circus. There are zombies and animals running all around. You unlock a companion Bengal tiger in this one. It's pretty neat to be running through a game with a tiger next to you taking down zombies. It's pretty clever. The next one is called Night of the Living Dead. This one was pretty interesting. It was supposed to be, I think, in the same area as the movie, and it's you trying to survive through the zombie event. Basically, you find this local to help you along, and it actually has a differently run level. It's the first one after me going through like 70 or 80 levels, where I actually found a level that was a little different. In this level, you don't actually change your trajectory to the left or right, but you're running completely in a straight path trying to get to a farmhouse. You just have to shoot all the zombies that sort of get in front of you. It's not a huge change, but it's slightly different, and it's something. The most interesting side mission, I think, in this whole game has to be the Ghostbusters game. It takes a long time to unlock it. I had to go through all 60 of the basic levels to get it unlocked. And it's actually a game that's probably a little more different than I expected. I mean, the gameplay is pretty much the same, but the other expansions all have zombies in them, so this one doesn't have zombies. Instead, it has these glowing ghosts like you would find in the movie, and you're running around with the Ghostbusters crew shooting ghosts with a proton pack. You get to use a proton pack in this one, and there are a couple of variations of it as well, and I think that's kind of great, especially for fans of that particular franchise. You also get the Ghost Slimer as a pet, and he races across the screen back and forth. It's pretty interesting. If you don't appreciate the type of repetitive nature of a game like this, you're probably not going to keep it long enough to unlock all these items. They're not necessarily hard tasks, they're just a little time-consuming, really. The one thing I don't like in this game is that the loading times of the levels just feels far too long. I mean, if I just played a level and I died, and I want to replay it, I have to reload the entire level. I think I'd like this better overall if this loading time was reduced. It's kind of a bother as it is now. It is one of those Switch games that seems to be playable in both handheld and docked mode. Some games just don't lend themselves very well to handheld, but this one works just fine. In docked mode, I don't know, it just doesn't also seem as smooth on the big screen. Maybe there's a different frame rate, I'm not sure. I don't think it's a huge deal, but it is something that I noticed. I found myself not caring much for this game at first, but after playing to get footage for this video, I started cramming through some levels here, and I started to appreciate it more. When you start to unlock the side missions and you start to get the weapons that you like playing with, it's much better than where you started, absolutely. I have to say this one kind of grew on me a little bit. Yeah, it's a little brainless, but it is fun. Well, that's all I have today for Into the Dead 2 for the Nintendo Switch. Thanks for stopping by to take a look, and I'll catch you on another video.